Hi, this is Charlie again from Personal Readiness Education Programs. Welcome to the corner of a doom room that we're in today. We're going to talk about dehydrating. We get a lot of questions from our students and clients about, well, what's some of the best ways that we can preserve our food? Well, we like Mylar packaging, and we have a number of other methods, but the one that people ask about frequently is, well, dehydrating. There's a couple of different methods that you can do for dehydrating, and one of the benefits of dehydrating is taking a normally perishable food, in this particular case we have some mushrooms today, and taking all the moisture out of them, make them last an awful lot longer. There's a couple of different ways you can go with it. As you can see here, we've got our 9-tray Excalibur dehydrator. It's a really fancy machine. It's pretty nice. It does a lot of work for us. You can also go with these round ones here, and they run anywhere from the $50 to $60, $70 range. They have little round shelves on them, and they even come with some plastic inserts if you want to make your own, like, fruit roll-up kind of foods. All these little plastic shelves fit on top of each other, and you can add as many as you want, or you can just go with one. They're modular that way. They have a little temperature setting on the top, so that's one way to go. But I'll warn you ahead of time, if you're going to get into dehydrating, you're going to start this thing up, you're going to say, I need 2, 3, 4 more of these things, and you want to run them all the time, because it's actually pretty fun. It saves a lot of money in produce. The food, when it's reconstituted, tastes just the same as it does fresh. So, for example, I have right here, this is a little tub of mushrooms that we just did last night, and we're going to start another set of mushrooms today. What you'll find is, this was a 10-pound box of fresh mushrooms. What you see in this little container right here was the same exact amount that went on this entire 9 trays here. So I'll show you up closer. What we end up having is something that comes out very leathery. It actually breaks a little bit. It's a little bit crunchy. You can reduce as much moisture as you want out of these. Now, once I put these in some warm water or just cook them into a meal, they will reconstitute very similar to what you have here, which is these fresh mushrooms. So it's not just mushrooms that you can do. We can also do fresh corn. Here's corn that we dehydrated. Now, this container of corn here was the same as we got on sale at a restaurant supply store here. You can see how much they're reduced down. So it saves a lot of room, it saves freezer space, and it makes things last an awful lot longer. What else can we put in here? Well, we do a lot of bell peppers. One of the things you want to look for when you start doing peppers and fruits, don't let it get too leathery. It will still work just fine, but it's nice to have them when they're still crispy. But if you find that you get to where they're starting to get some soft spots in the refrigerator and you know you're not going to eat them, slice them up, toss them in the dehydrator, and don't worry about it anymore. Another thing that we love, bananas. Slice these bananas down to about 3/8 of an inch, lay them all over these trays in here, and you'll have some great chips. Now, you can go with some softer ones and still leave some moisture in it for a snack, or you can dehydrate them all the way down and make them crispy chips, which will extend the shelf life even further. Down here in Florida, we also have a lot of access to mangoes and other tropical fruits. They're pretty handy to put in. One of the things that you'll find out is the more moist the fruit or food is that you put in here, the longer the time it will take to actually process it. So, what does that mean? Based on your relative humidity, down here it's always humid, it's always hot. Because there's moisture in the air, it's a little bit harder to take the moisture out of our foods. So we may run our bananas, or I'll tell you what's delicious, pineapple rings. Once you do some pineapple rings inside of there, it's really good, but you'll find that they need to run anywhere from 10 to 13 hours depending on the humidity. Something like beef jerky, which most of us love, here is a 16-pound beef butt that we picked up at a restaurant supply store, and we're going to cut this into some roasts, and we're going to make some beef jerky with it. It's all about finding bargains and setting them aside for later on. So, what are a couple of the basics that we want to worry about when we're doing dehydrating? Well, we don't want the food to overlap too much. We want to try to get the food laid out so that it's in a single layer. If it's sitting on top of each other too much, for example, if you took pineapple slices and left one laying on top of the other, you would essentially have something about this thick. That's not going to work for you. Everything needs to be somewhere in the area of 3/8 to maybe a 1/2 inch thick at the most, And you want to try to have everything cut so that it's similar in thickness, because you don't want some things that are going to dry sooner than others, because then they're going to be harder than other pieces later on. So just try to find some consistency in your slicing. So all you've got to do is put your stuff on these trays. Okay. In this particular model, we're going to close the door. Now up on the top here, and it might be a little hard for you to see, there's a guide that tells you the different temperatures for food. It doesn't give you time. I cannot tell you how long it's going to take, because again, it depends on how much food is in here, how much moisture have you put inside of here, what is your relative humidity outside. But I do know that at a temperature that I can tell you is, for example, on here, if I'm going to do mushrooms, I'm going to turn this thing on and I'm going to set it at 125 degrees, because it tells me vegetables are going to go at 125 degrees on here. That's all I've got to do. All I got to do now is make a note of my time and come back and check it later on. Now, one of the handy things that you can do, to make sure that you are drying in a consistent fashion, is come back and take one of these out of the middle and maybe take one off the top. Let me set this down here so I don't get mushrooms, so we haven't thinned them out yet. And move them down here. But you can also turn them so that they're getting some air from the other side. See, I can turn this even at 180 degrees and put it on the other side. And the air is going to flow around inside of here. So throughout the day, don't open it too many times, but come back in about 8 or 10 hours and have a look at it. And just do it a few times. You'll start to get comfortable with how these things operate. Once you get them all finished up, you can put them into a Tupperware container like this. We like to go to the restaurant supply store and we pick up these little plastic tubs and put the lids on them, and they're more or less disposable once you buy them in bulk. We also have, this is actually, when we were making some fire starters and melted some waxes, we took the candle glass, cleaned it out real well, and then we put our corn in here for a nice decorative fixture. What the makeup of these different trays is you have a grid like this, and then usually you have some sort of mesh material. Now, it's very important that you start out with your material being clean. So come back in with, after you do your batch of vegetables, or fruits especially, because they get really sticky, and put this thing in the sink and get yourself a scrub brush, one that you only use for this, not that you're using on the bathroom floor. All right? Another way to do this, and I like to go out onto a glass top picnic table, put these things right on the surface, and get a big toilet bowl brush that I use just for this, pour some dish soap on there with a garden hose, and I can sit there and I can scrub these off. It's a lot easier than trying to do these big things in a sink. So, that's all I have right now as a quick intro to dehydrating. If you have any questions, you can reach us at info@readygoprep.com or our website at www.readygoprep.com. Thank you.